Welcome back to part 2 of the VQ engine and CD transmission removal. I'm your host Alex, and this is Wallsdeep Drifting. We left off on part 1, with lifting the car so I can get to the underside and unhook more components. Lapel mic is still dead at this point, so I'll be editing in reverse order. Now let's get back to pulling this car apart. This car was getting pretty battered at the end of the season, and I knew it had some exhaust leaks. We can see here that some of the bolts and nuts are missing on the right side. Just a few less things to remove. Being in the Midwest, most metal parts get rusted fast. Having penetrating oil or a torch on hand can be helpful. Using an impactor or breaker bar here is ideal. You'll see that one of the studs pulls out and another breaks. That's okay with me, as the LS will have brand new, heat-coated, ISR high ground clearance swap headers. Moving farther back, we can see the connectors for the rear O2 sensors. Mine are zip tied to the bracket as they've been abused over the years. Simply unplug them and set the leads aside. Not necessary to remove, but it can help with the clearance. I'm going to pull off the bracket which connects the downpipes or catalytic converter to the chassis. Two 14mm bolts and it's out. Now to removing the clutch slave cylinder. There should be 2 bolts holding this in, but it looks like one was lost along the way. Remove the bolts and save the heat shield. Set the cylinder and connecting hose out of the way. Moving forward on the left hand side is the crank sensor. The sensor is held in by one 10mm bolt. Remove the bolt, pull the sensor out of its hole, disconnect it from the harness, and put the sensor somewhere safe. You don't have to remove these plugs from your transmission, but it is just one more thing that can get caught or crushed on the way out. 2 14mm bolts will have them out of the way. I promise, we're getting closer to lifting the engine. But something I forget 3 out of 4 times is actually removing the shifter. If your boot is present under here, peel it back to access the bottom of the shifter. There is a bolt which holds the shifter rod to the shifter linkage. Thread this out and store it so it doesn't get lost. We then move into the cabin. Start spinning off your shift knob. Then pry off the surrounding bezel and boot. This can be done by prying up the edge of the plastic or grabbing the leather boot and giving it a good tug up. At the back of that bezel, there are 2 plugs. One for the light in the tray and one for the hazard lights button. Unplug these and the bezel can be removed. Underneath, there are 4 bolts holding the rubber boot down to the chassis. Remove these and pull up the boot. There is one more boot protecting the top plate of the shifter. Peel up on the edges and remove it. On the shifter mechanism, there are 3 bolts that hold down the top plate. Remove these bolts, revealing the tension spring underneath, and then you can now remove your shifter. Everything is now cleared to remove the engine and transmission, with the exception of the engine and transmission mounts. On removal, it's okay to leave the drive shaft as is. Its yoke should angle and slide out as the rest of the equipment is pulled forward. I'll lower the car again so I can get a floor jack under the transmission to support it. When the bolts come out, the transmission will stay parallel with the floor, and the wheels on the jack will allow it to slide forward. Now that the transmission is supported, remove the bolts holding the transmission's crossmember to the chassis. Then remove the nuts holding the engine mounts to the crossmember. These are located just above where the lower control arms are mounted. With these all removed, we're ready to lift. Alright, at this point I think we've got everything unplugged from the car, everything's disconnected, bolts are out, grounds, heating, everything should be disconnected, should. We'll find out when we start pulling this out if it is. If it is stuck, stop, don't force it. Make sure that you're not snagging on anything. One of the worst things that happens on these cars is you typically crush the power steering line, so be cognizant of that as you start to pull things out. But let's get this thing strapped up and put the engine hoist on it. Went ahead and dropped the sway bar. We got our strap on the engine, hook it up to the picker, start lifting and pulling it out. Wish me luck. All right, so that clears us of the engine mounts. Maybe I'll go ahead and let the transmission tip down a little bit. Make sure that we're not hitting anything up in here. All right, we're on the plastic lip there. Give it a good tug here. Like I said, make sure you're not crushing your power steering lines because I am getting awfully close right now. That's one thing that I don't want to have to replace. I do have an extra rack. There we go. And it's clearing just fine. There. Don't smash those lines. All right, let's continue. We're still clear. All right, what are we touching? We are touching our power steering lines, just like I said, don't do. I'll lift this up a little higher, get some more clearance. We're pretty much home free. We just lifted up off the jack I had under the transmission. We're lifting up, it's just kind of dangling there right now. Try to get the rest of this cleared without breaking something. And we're probably almost at max height on this thing too. Probably should have brought the lift just a little lower. Now we're leaking transmission fluid, oh no! Hurry up! There we go. All right. Oh, we're stuck on a single wire down there from the freaking underglow. There we go. Engine's out. We got a nice oil spill there, but I'll drain that and fill it before it goes in the new car. I mean the new engine. There you go. Engine transmission removal. Pretty straightforward. Takes a little time and patience, but anybody can do it. You don't have to have a lift and power tools. It can all be done with hand tools and like a cherry picker and a jack. All right, so with the engine and transmission out, I got a little bit of cleanup to do. I'll get the kitty litter down and mop that up. Clean up the engine bay just a little bit. Remove the power steering stuff because we're gonna have all new coolers on that, new lines. Probably a good idea to drain that anyway. It was getting a little soft at the end of the season. Yeah, this engine will go to a new home. We'll clean up the transmission and get things ready for the LS. Wiring harness is still a mess. I got loom coming for that, as well as some new connectors because fuel injectors are not lining up with what I need. Yeah, ISR adapter kit will be on the way. We got lots of goodies to install. So hopefully you learned a little something on this episode, or at least were a little entertained, and you come back for some more later. If you liked this video and found it helpful, learned something, or have any other tips to share with myself or the community, be sure to hit the like button and leave a comment. Want to see more of the LS build and its process? Hit that subscribe button for notifications so you can follow along. This is Alex with Wallsdeep Drifting, signing out. Thanks for watching.